I would say something that lives on, something that doesn't just go away, and people take inspiration and motivation from it and in it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales of Our Times. This is a show where we discuss the stories that move us, what makes them so meaningful, and why others could or should find meaning in them as well. This is not a spoiler-free show, so bear that in mind as you continue to listen. We tackle books, movies, comics, and more. Where there's a story, there's a reason to read or watch in today's show. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, and joining me in the studio today is a fellow RTI host, Fil Leskovsky.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Welcome, Phil. This is the first time you're on my show. Is there anything you'd like to say to introduce yourself?
I do stuff related with music. So I have Taiwan Grooves and Island Tunes, which are two very similar, closely related shows. Whereas Taiwan Grooves is more interview-based, and Island Tunes is just mostly music of other artists.
Yeah.
And I like to think of it as people's music who will not possibly come on my show. So the less chance I have, that will be more put into Island Tunes category.
Yeah. Well, you can feature people that you wouldn't get an opportunity to speak
Exactly.
to. And then you can speak to people who,
yeah.
like, okay, I like that.
Some people don't need an interview anymore like that. They're
Yeah.
well known, they're famous. They have a
very
bunch of
good-
stuff going on.
It's a good split. Anyway, what story have you brought for us today?
Well, okay, it was a tough one. Luckily, recently we have watched a movie called Atlantis.
And so, listeners, today, some of you may be familiar. We're going to talk about Disney's Atlantis. That was called Atlantis, the Lost Empire from 2001. It's actually it's a shockingly, I remember in my experience when I tried to look it up previously, a really kind of skimpy myth. In terms of you look at all of these other mythological cities or places, and Atlantis is very famous, but there's not really a lot on it in my experience.
I was surprised there was only one movie made about it.
Well, I mean, I think it gets mentioned in a lot of other movies,
Right.
But I feel like dedicated movies and stories. I don't know, at least in English, there are not as many as you would think for as well known as the name is.
Exactly. It's such a good source of ideas.
Yeah, it's
Could
kind
be
of like
remake into. So you're a fan.
I'm getting distracted. I am a really big fan of this
That's
movie.
great. That's
Actually,
very good.
I was
need
really
that.
excited. Yeah. I was very excited when you mentioned it. Although, I think the summary will be useful because I realized I haven't watched it in forever.
Okay.
And
I'll do
so-
my best. I watched it for the first time.
Oh, good. Oh, that's kind of fun because I think I have seen it probably 2 or 3 times,
Okay.
but a long time ago.
Time to
And then I see
rewatch.
I see little clips of it more often.
Right.
So okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the summary
Right.
of Atlantis. Phil, can you give us a summary?
I'll do my best. So to start off with movie, we have a couple of characters who are going on a expedition.
Yeah.
That the main character's Milo's. Milo and his grandpa, there was a bet or something like that, and then they promised that they would go and discover this place. So Atlantis was a place that was put under the ocean, into water, and that was known to be for a huge wealth and a lot of superpowers based on some crystals and some deities.
Yeah.
And since the expedition of these people, they were after money, when Milo wasn't. But so you have this huge group that goes down under the earth, and they kind of have to solve riddles. They have to get through some, special bridges. They have to find some hidden meanings, and it's a fun watch to just see them get to it.
It's kind of I would say, I remember a thing about it being we know that it's an underwater city, but a lot of the expedition takes place in underground caves, which is kind of, I was surprised at first watching the movie. So they're just camping out in kind of dry caves or caves next to a river or something like that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So
yeah, most of it is in normal land and caves, as you say. And then they kind of make it to the city. And they meet all the How detailed do we want this summary?
Very detailed. Go ahead.
Very
Get
detailed.
deep into it. It's everyone gets warned at the beginning. So if they get spoiled at this point, that's too bad for them.
It's 2001. I hope
There's
nobody's getting
like
spoiled anymore.
more than 19 years, more than 20 years.
Yeah, for that, wow, good job. All right, so they get to the city and they meet the characters, which are obviously not happy with their presence because they kind of know what's going on here.
The Atlanteans are like wise to this.
Like, why?
BS.
We know what you want. Like, it's all about the money. Like, you look at those people and you see it's just selfish reasons. But then the main character is a linguist and a scriptologist. Like, he understands all languages and he kind of can read the old Atlantis language.
Yeah. He studied these like kind of old quote unquote dead languages, so he can actually understand the old Atlantean.
Exactly. And the people there can't.
Oh, they can't. Oh, I forgot that.
A lot of them can't.
Oh, so it's even been lost in Atlantis, how to read their script.
So that's why he comes also off as a very precious person to them, and they don't see him as just somebody who comes there to take from them and leave, but somebody who can actually help them. Because as the story goes and the tales says that it's the city of Atlantis had everything and they were living in very harmonious, good life. They were powerful, strong. They had like utopia.
Yeah.
But then they kind of wanted to take over some cities and they got greed.
It's like the folly, like man's folly. So from greed, they're punished.
By
and they
the
lose it all.
higher upper gods.
Yeah.
And then they lost it all. So they kind of want to regain this spark. They want to find it back. And what happens is that Milo is able to help. And as soon as the other main character, which is Princess Kira.
The Atlantean princess, Kida.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Then she goes on a little side quest mission expedition with Milo, and they find the crystals, and they kind of rediscover how the whole power works.
Yeah.
By the
time
like
they turn on the technology, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes. To turn on the technology and bring the powers back. So they find it. They get, they crack the case. They come further than anyone before. They come back just to find out that all the greedy people have kind of brought guns, and this is not a peaceful expedition anymore, and it's really about getting those crystals and power.
It's kind of like if you saw Disney's Tarzan, where it's like, yeah, most of the people on the expedition are good, but you have these like two really bad eggs that are there with guns and the ambition to steal and pillage and rob. Like,
surprisingly, the whole majority of the expedition is kind of on the bad terms, because they know they're there to take stuff, to steal stuff, like to get personal advantage and gain their own. But as that happens, they steal the crystal, they get everything ready to leave. Milo starts to persuade one by one to stick with him, and that it's not at all about money and they can do something bigger than that.
Yeah.
And then slowly people just come to his side and they start to fight against the two. Well,
he's able to convince everybody to work for a better cause. Well, almost everybody.
Yeah.
There's two, I did check their names. There's two characters,
Rourke,
Helga
yeah.
and yes. There's two characters that are like, we only want money.
Right, exactly. So
important.
they got their spaceship balloon, kind of, hot air balloon ready, the crystals leaving. And then they discover that Milo can read the languages, right? So they can fly these machines. Think of kind of like Star Wars.
Hover bikes.
Hover bikes, exactly.
Yeah.
So they start chasing after them. There's some chase and, some shooting and all that. They rescue it. Even you said Helga? Even she gets betrayed by the other guy. So you see it's very selfish. It's not like we're two of us escaping. It's like, okay, he pushes her off. She kind of saves herself. Then she shoots
like a flare.
Flare, exactly.
Yeah. She shoots off a flare.
She shoots off a flare to the balloon, and then the balloon goes down, and they
both
kind
die.
No, they're alive.
But
then the bad guy just kind of touches the crystal, but it's too much power for him, so he just kind of turns into a crystal-y guy, and I think that's the end of it. And that's the end of him.
He just dies. That's the end of him.
Yes.
And then I forget at the end of Atlantis, if I remember correctly, most of the expedition goes back and they lie that Atlantis is not real. Like they keep it a secret.
Right, you're right. Everybody except for Milo goes back, who decides to stay because he has fallen in love with Kida, to say.
Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the Disney.
And he just enjoys the company there. He knows the language. He just wants to stay and be part of that society. Everybody goes back, and there's a scene of they're all sitting next to a fire pit, I think, in the room. Everybody with their treasure chest, wearing good clothes, having diamonds and all that. And then they're like, have you found it? And they're like, no, like, let's keep it secret. And
Yeah.
I think even Milo sends the other person who
There's
funded the whole
benefactor.
thing. The benefactor.
Because he did, there were a lot of selfish people involved, but the benefactor did seem like an honestly good person
Yes.
who was like truly curious
Right.
to learn more.
Exactly.
So
he just sends him a gift
yeah.
in the form of a lot of precious gifts and money
Or like a
and
special
all that.
crystal.
Special crystals.
Basically
everything.
something that's like, you're right,
Exactly.
but hush. But like,
yeah, like
keep it down low.
let's keep it secret. So
Right. But you can know that you were right.
Mm,
Yeah. So that's Atlantis. That's the movie
very,
itself.
yeah, sorry. Broken down summary of what I remember.
Oh no, it's okay. It's fine. Listen, that's part of what the summary is. We all do our best. We all remember. We all learn together. So normally this is the part where I'd ask like, what's your first experience with this movie?
Very good question. Luckily, my girlfriend and her sister and sister's boyfriend, they got hands on the property that they can open up a cafe.
Oh, yes.
On Eastern Taiwan, in
Exciting.
Eastern Taiwan. And they initially, or I think it's still going on, they decided to name it Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
And
So that's what started your research.
that's how they kind of said, you know what, we're so excited, let's just watch the movie and let's just get into the mood and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, okay, sure, let's watch that. And we watched the movie, and that's the first time I ever heard that there's a movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I probably knew there was a movie, but I don't remember seeing it. Maybe when I was super young.
It's okay. I would say it's okay because I don't think this one was very well advertised, and it's not kept alive by Disney basically ever.
Right, but why do you think it's that?
I
Like,
can't
for
say exactly what it
2001,
is,
it
but
was okay.
I think we talked a little bit about this in the studio for the listeners. There was kind of this like experimental period where they did a couple of movies. Atlantis was one of them, and Treasure Planet was another one that felt like if you watch Disney movies like I did from like the 90s into the late 2000s, kind of felt like another experimental period where they were like taking stories that didn't fit with like their traditional storyline. They did still Disneyfy them because like in Atlantis, like he falls in love with a princess that he meets and then they fall in love. But it's a lot more like Journey to the Center of the Earth-ish than any other story they had. And then Treasure Planet is based off of Treasure Island. So two like really unconventional for Disney kind of animated movies. But my guess is that they just didn't make enough money for them, like as compared to their other properties, like their princess formulas and other things. But I'm really disappointed by it because I thought like these are two of my favorite movies that they've done. I think because it doesn't stick with the regular formula. Like, and I find that I mentioned I like the ensemble of characters. If you guys haven't seen this movie, or if you have, do yourself a favor and like check it out. Because they feel like very real characters compared to a lot of Disney things. It's like people from Brooklyn that like have these like real stories or accents.
Cook and all that.
Yeah, there's the demolitions expert that wants to open
Yeah.
a flower shop. It's very like against your expectations in a fun
I never thought about
way.
it that way. I
Like-
didn't know there was a Disney formula, but yeah, now that you say it,
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense. Now you make me wonder, like, how was the movie rated by everybody? Because
Yeah.
I didn't hear bad things about it. I mean, from a perspective of movie critic or something, it's 2001, so we have to bear that in mind, right?
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
I don't think it was very highly rated. Just I Googled it before this to
Right.
like refresh my own memory, and it's not very highly rated.
Like
And I think,
66
Like
point something.
like 49.
Oh, wow,
I think
that's
I saw one
low.
of them. Very low.
Yeah.
But I think to what you said too, like the first thing I asked you when we were talking about it, I was like, oh, I like it. You mentioned you thought the action was too fast.
Right, that's my only
Right.
like pinpoint that I would say. I thought the scenes didn't give you enough time to get into it and kind of get emotionally taken back,
Yeah.
taken away, or like
Yeah.
it just kind of happened too fast. Like there wasn't too much build up. Something happened, and then they just did like this scribble roll that the scene just passes away, and just goes another. And
Yeah.
I was like,
The action happens too fast, back to back to back to back.
it doesn't give you the time to kind of like get into it and make you feel, you know.
Yeah.
That was my problem with it.
I think it is partially a pacing problem.
Right.
But again, that's what I say. I think like they were kind of an experimental period. So like
True.
I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't pursue more movies like this or in this style. Because I think it's more like fun and adventure-y. And I think Disney is like a company that had the money to do it better. And I don't like there's a lot of other people out there who are much more schooled in like Disney and like the ways of that company works and other things like that. But like around 2001, because they were kind of experimenting with like 3D, right? Like if you, it's been so long since I watched Atlantis, but I think they used some 3D imaging for like the magic or the stones. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I know they did it in Treasure Planet for sure,
yeah.
because they have like a couple of little like 3D puppets that they use, and they were deciding kind of like how to transition into using it, because shortly after that, I think, is like The Princess and the Frog, and then they kind of went in the direction of just using 3D but sticking to their formula, and where we are now with like live action remakes. And buying Marvel was also probably something that took up most of their time and money at that point, because I think that's when those movies started coming out, was like mid 2000s.
Okay,
late 2000s. I think so. So
could be, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, okay. Let's get back a little bit more to our my regular questions, and get into like what we'll go to, like what makes this movie like meaningful to you, or what meaning did you find in it, and we'll start there.
It's kind of a nice idea just to have something that existed that has not been discovered or yet unknown. You know, it's not even that
like
it has
the Forbidden City idea.
Forbidden City idea. It's not that even like not that it has super subjective meaning to me, because I'm not gonna go on an expedition to explore Atlantis. But to have something that has not yet been discovered, and there's still something new to, you know, even like keeping this idea alive that it could be a possibly realistic place. It's just it's exciting, you know.
It is. I mean,
because once we know everything,
fast forward to like what
mysterious
meaning can people find in this movie beyond you, right? Like, I think that's why I like this movie a lot. As I do really agree with you on like the romantic notion of like the lost city of blank. Because we, like, when we were exploring the world, I think at least Europeans had a lot of these. I would have to imagine that many other cultures had something similar too, for like this fabled lost city of somewhere where like things are better than they are here, or at least very different, and it's like something to go chase after and explore.
Exactly, explore. That's the correct word. Like the adventurous spirit, that you do something. Because nowadays people just get, you know, settled. You're comfortable.
Right.
You don't need to go to another island city to do something. But back then it was the drive. Like you kind of want to go. You're willing to learn another language for it. You're willing to meet another civilization.
To like live in discomfort to discover something that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah.
You're right. Like the romantic notion of like the spirit of adventure. For just like
spirit of adventure. Yeah,
for
like
itself.
Exactly.
Well, shockingly, we're out of time. It goes so fast.
That's good?
Yeah, it's good.
Sorry.
I shockingly, because it just goes fast for me.
Okay.
But I have one last question, which is to ask you, if you were to give Atlantis, it actually has its own subtitle. It's The Lost Empire. But imagine it doesn't have that. So if you were to give Atlantis, the 2001 Disney movie, a subtitle of your own, what would that be?
The Adventure to the Unknown.
Ooh, yes. Atlantis. Adventure to the Unknown.
Adventure to the Unknown. Because they're not sure if they have that, right? Like they don't even know if they're going to find it. But you don't want to like just turn around and give up, because you feel like you're closer and closer and something's there. So that keeps you going. Like if you knew where it is, and you don't have the element of, okay, is it not?
Yeah.
And that's where they're going. Whereas they could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
They could be nothing.
Well, and I think like also I like that subtitle, because I think it gets to like one reason why now, much later, it's another reason why I like that movie still. Or like when I see things based off of that, is the like fun idea of this, like we just said, like the spirit of adventure, but like looking for someplace that maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't exist, right? And the excitement that you can get caught up in that. I think that idea and like the romanticization of it is timeless.
That's beautifully put, yes.
So, well, thank you for joining me today, Phil.
Thank you for helping me get this out of me.
And thank you to everyone out there for joining us here on Radio Taiwan International. I have been Amanda Stevens with my friend and fellow co-host, Fil Leskovsky. I did think about Phyllis. I did think about Fil Leskovsky. So, and I hope that all of you out there enjoyed learning more about Atlantis, the Lost Empire, Adventure to the Unknown, a tale of our time. We'll see you next time.